weigh a hydrogen atom. One proton, one electron, and the two charges cancel, not almost, but to a precision that is hard to picture. Experiments bound whatever is left over below 1 part in 10 to the 21. That is one of the most exact nothings anyone has ever measured. Now split the proton open, and the tidy whole number falls apart into thirds. 2 up quarks at plus 2/3. 1 down quark at minus 1/3. Nothing in electromagnetism tells you why nature picked those fractions, and nothing tells you why they conspire, generation after generation, to leave every atom neutral. The orthodox account writes the numbers into a table and moves on. This chapter argues they are not free. One thing before we begin, Advaita Chakra Theory is a speculative exploratory framework, not established peer-reviewed physics. Much of what follows is honest conjecture that still needs validation. Watch it in that spirit as ideas to test, argue with, and refute. Start with what charge already is on this substrate, because that is where the trouble comes from. A particle of matter is a knot in a phase field, a defect where the phase of the Goldstone mode wins around. Its charge is the number of whole turns the phase makes as you walk a loop around it. That is the whole reason charge behaves as it does. Winding numbers are integers, so charge comes in whole units, is conserved, and adds up, with no continuous dial to tune. The electron is 1 turn one way, the positron 1 turn the other. Now look at the quarks, and the picture breaks. Measured against the electron, the down quark carries minus 1/3 and the up quark plus 2/3. A knot cannot make 1/3 of a turn. Whatever supplies those fractions sits between the topological integer and the charge you actually measure. And here is where it hides. Electric charge is not one label. It is 2 labels added together, a weak iso spin, which is a half-integer channel label, and a hy per charge. The integer winding lives in the electric charge after the substrate locks. The fractions live entirely in the hy per charge. So the question why thirds becomes a sharper question. What fixes the hy per charge? 3 suspects, and each one gets struck off. Suspect 1 grand unification. Bury the standard model inside a bigger group, and the fractions do fall out. The group theory of the embedding quantizes hy per charge for you, but you pay for it. You buy proton decay, and you buy a unification scale, and the substrate supplies neither. Anomaly freedom fixes the charges without any embedding at all, so this chapter takes the cheaper road. No grand unified theory is assumed, and none is needed to explain the thirds. Suspect 2, a magnetic monopole. Put one anywhere in the spectrum, an electric charge has to come in whole units. That is a real mechanism, but look at what it delivers. It quantizes the unit. It says nothing about the pattern. It cannot tell you why the quirk hy per charge is 1/6 rather than any other multiple. Winding already gave us the unit. What we are missing is the pattern. Suspect 3 is the author's own retraction. An earlier draft tried to read the gauge field straight off a smooth phase gradient. Do that honestly and the field strength comes out identically 0, no electromagnetism at all. That draft is withdrawn. The correct symmetry is topological, and that matters for a specific reason. Only a topological label is an integer, and only an integer is the kind of thing the conditions we are about to write down can constrain. The survivor is a consistency requirement, and to see why it bites you need one fact about the weak interaction. The theory is chiral. Left-handed and right-handed particles carry different charges. They have to, if the weak force is going to tell left from right, which it demonstrably does. Handedness has a price. Take a chiral symmetry, make it a gauge symmetry, and quantum corrections can destroy the very conservation law the theory is built on. One diagram does it: a triangle, 3 gauge legs, a handed particle running round the loop. At one loop, the current stops being conserved. This is not a small correction to be estimated and quietly carried. A gauge theory whose current is not conserved is not a gauge theory. You lose U net ART, you lose renormal ISA by LT, and what you have left is an expression that returns probabilities greater than 1. So consistency does not suggest that the triangles cancel. It demands it, summed over every piece of matter in the theory. And here is the part that makes this chapter possible. Written out, that demand is not a hard calculation. It is arithmetic on the charges. Weight each family by how many of them there are, and 2 sums have to vanish: the plain sum of the charges and the sum of their cubes. Two more conditions come from the non-abelian parts of the group, and one is a parity check, an even number of weak doublets. 4 conditions and a check. No dynamics enters any of them. So set it up honestly as a system of equations with the charges as unknowns. Take one generation of matter with the smallest handed content that still lets every particle acquire a mass from a single condensate. That is 5 pieces. A quark doublet, an up antiquark, a down antiquark, a lepton doublet, and the positron. 5 pieces, 5 unknown hy per charges, and we will not assume a value for any of them. The weights matter, so count them carefully. The quark doublet carries 3 colors and 2 spin states, so it appears 6 times. Each colored singlet appears 3 times. The lepton doublet appears twice. The lepton singlet once. 6, 3, 3, 2, 1. Now write the 4 conditions. The color triangle, the spin triangle, the gravitational one, which is the plane weighted sum, and the pure gauge one, the weighted sum of cubes. Then count what we have. 5 unknowns. 4 equations. On that arithmetic alone we should not be able to finish, because 4 equations cannot pin 5 numbers. At best we get a 1-parameter family, array of solutions rather than a point. And it is worse than that, because the equations do not even fix an overall scale. If some set of charges solves them, so does twice that set, or 100 times it. The something else is mass. Every one of these particles has a mass, and, in this theory, mass comes from 1 Higgs. For that to be allowed, the mass terms must be neutral under the gauge symmetry. 3 more equations tying the charges to the Higgs. Feed those back into the triangles, and the order in which things collapse is the interesting part. The color condition goes first, and it does not merely get solved. It becomes an identity. 0 equals 0. Once masses exist, the color triangle cancels automatically. The spin condition then fixes the lepton doublet at -3 times the quark doublet, and the gravitational condition fixes the Higgs at 3 times it. At that point, every charge in the theory is a multiple of 1 number 1, -4 2, -3 6, all times the quark hy per charge. 1 parameter left to the overall scale. And now the cubic condition, the hard-looking one. Here is what everybody expects it to do, and what it does not do. It does not fix the scale. It cannot. It is homogeneous of degree 3, so it is either true for every scale or true for none. Test the ray against it and it vanishes identically, so the cubic is not a 5th constraint. It is a consistency check that the linear solution happens to pass, and that it passes at all is a small miracle of this particular assignment. It is the technical heart of the argument. Fix the scale by convention by declaring the positron to carry unit charge, and the whole table drops out. 1/6 minus 2/3, 1/3, minus a half, 1. That is the entire hy per charge assignment of a generation, and nobody chose any of it. Now I want to be exact about the status of this result, because it would be easy to oversell. It is not mine. This is the Geng Marshak result from 1989. Anomalies freedom plus the mass condition determines the hy per charges uniquely. That theorem is standard physics. This theory relabels it. It does not improve it. What it adds is the setting. The labels being constrained are windings of one goldstone field, and on that substrate, this is the only way the charges could have come out. Let us audit it by hand, because a claim like that deserves to be checked in public. Color triangle 2/6 minus 2/3 plus 1/3, 0. I spin 3/6 minus a half, 0. The gravitational sum, weighting each piece by 6, 3, 3, 2, 1 gives 1 minus 2 plus 1 minus 1 plus 1, 0. And the cubic, put everything over 36 and the terms read 1 minus 32 plus 4 minus 9 plus 36, 0. All 4 vanish with no residue to absorb anywhere. Now cash the hy per charges out into electric charges, which is 1 addition each. The up quark spin plus a halfway per charge 1/6 gives plus 2/3. The down quark spin minus half gives minus a third. There are the thirds. The neutrino comes out at exactly 0, the electron at exactly -1. Integer electrons, fractional quarks, from one table nobody chose. Build a proton, 2 up 1 down, and it comes to +1. Build a neutron, 1 up and 2 down, and it comes to 0. Then put the hydrogen atom back together, +1, -1, exactly 0. Which brings us back to where we started, and to the sharpest thing in this chapter. That one part in 10 to the 21 is not a coincidence somebody happened to measure. It is the gravitational Anomalies condition wearing an experimentalist's clothes. Atomic neutrality is the Anomalies condition. They are the same statement. One question left about the setup. Why 5 pieces? Why not 4 or 3? Because cancelling an no E while staying handed is genuinely hard. There is a cheap way to cancel these sums, and it is worth seeing why it fails. Take a charge and its mirror image, plus something and minus something. Both sums vanish immediately, the plain sum by cancellation, the cubes because cubing keeps the sign. Done. Except that a mirror pair is not handed at all. It is an ordinary heavy particle with no preferred handedness. It feels no weak interaction, and calling it a generation is calling a stone a clock. So demand real handedness, with no mirror partners. Demand that everything can acquire a mass from one condensate. Now search. Below 5 charged pieces there is nothing. No set of charges is simultaneously handed, no MLE free, and able to give everything mass. 5 is the floor. And the 5-piece solution is exactly the one nature uses. The smallest self-consistent unit of matter is one standard model generation. Now the honest boundary on that, because this is the sentence that gets misquoted. Minimality forces the structure of a generation. It says nothing whatever about how many generations there are. Nothing in these sum rules objects to stacking 3 identical copies, and nothing here predicts that 3 is what you find. That count comes from somewhere else entirely, a counting argument about flavor, 1 chapter later. 2 different mechanisms. Do not let anyone merge them. There is one more thing hiding in the answer, and it is the best result in the chapter and also the most honest. Go back through the algebra, but do not put 3 colors in. Leave the number of colors as a symbol and carry it. The whole calculation goes through unchanged, and the Quark HY per charge comes out as 1 over twice the number of colors. Push that through the charge relation, and you get the Quark charges for any color count at all. Put 3 in, and out come minus a third and plus 2/3, exactly. So look at what the thirds actually are. The fractional part of a Quark charge is 1 over the number of colors. The denominator is the color count. Saying Quark charges come in thirds and saying there are 3 colors are not 2 facts. They are 1 fact said twice. Which makes this a good place to plant a flag and a caveat in the same breath. The no Anomalies cancel for any number of colors, any number. So, the color count is not no Anomaly derivable. The conditions are simply silent about it. 3 enters this theory as an input, a channel count on the substrate, and the only thing fixing it is the measured minus a third. That debt is carried openly to the honesty ledger, where its verdict is recorded as input, not as a derivation. What the general formula buys is a translation, not an explanation. And it does buy a test, a world with the same anomaly structure, but 2 colors would show Quark charges in quarters, minus a quarter and plus 3/4. We see thirds. Within this theory, the down Quark charge is a direct measurement of the number 3. So what would break this? The standing prediction is strict, and it applies to every future discovery. Any new charged particle must arrive inside a complete anomaly free set, not eventually on arrival. A 4th generation, a single vector-like Quark, a fractionally charged color singlet each is forbidden unless it comes with the partners that put the sums back to 0. Find one that does not, and this chapter is finished. Notice what kind of prediction that is. It is not a tiny effect suppressed by some enormous scale. It is structural, it is order 1, and the data already meet it. Decades of searching for free quarks and fractional charges have found nothing, and the proton and electron balance to better than 1 part in 10 to the 21. The arithmetic is checked by machine as well as by hand. A routine takes the 5 HY per charges as unknowns, solves the 4 conditions with the mass constraints, and returns the same table to machine precision. A companion routine scans every charge set smaller than 5 and confirms that not one is simultaneously handed, no MLE free, and able to give everything mass, checked by exhaustion, on a bounded grid. Now the part that is not settled, stated plainly, 2 things in this chapter are inherited, and 1 is genuinely open. The inherited pieces first. The no MLE algebra is Adler and Bell and Jaguar from 1969, with the standard model cancellation done by Boo Shia, Iliopoulos and Mayer in 72. The uniqueness of the HY per charge solution is Geng and Marshak. Both are standard physics, relabeled here and not improved. Say so, and the chapter is honest. Claim them, and it is not. The open piece sits upstream of all the algebra, and it is the obvious question. Why is the emergent theory KY-ROL in the first place, and why this particular group with 3 colors? The handedness is asserted at the level of the channel structure. The 3 is an input. Neither is derived here. And there is exactly one object that would close it, a substrate-level computation of the channel count on a composite site that comes out KY-roll, with the right-handedness and with 3 colors. Get that, and the general formula stops translating the thirds and starts deriving them. No paper in this corpus supplies that count today, so the headline of this chapter stays labeled standard, not derived, and it keeps that label until somebody does the calculation. There is a nice way to see why the constraint has to hold at all due to T Hooft. An anomaly cannot change as you zoom out. Whatever the microscopic theory carries, the large-scale theory must reproduce exactly. Here the microscopic end is the rotor lattice, and the large-scale end is the gauge theory of defects. So the sum rules are a boundary condition tying the two ends of the ladder together. The lattice does not get to hand up any labels it likes. The verdict in 3 sentences. 1. The HY per charges of a generation are not free parameters. Anomaly freedom plus the requirement that mass be possible forces all 5, and that theorem is standard physics. This theory relabels rather than improves. 2. The smallest set of charges that is handed, anomaly free, and able to carry mass has 5 members, and it is exactly one standard model generation, though how many there are is a different question answered by a different mechanism. 3. The thirds in the Quark charge are the color count in disguise, which means the exact neutrality of a hydrogen atom and the cancellation condition on a triangle diagram are the same statement in 2 languages. The motif holds 1 substrate, 1 winding integer, and 1 consistency requirement that turns the channel labels of a single site into the charge table of the standard model. Next chapter where the count of 3 actually comes from and what the masses of the charged electrons have to do with a circle. Until then, here is one to try. Take the 5 HY per charges, weight them 6, 3, 3, 2, 1 and add them up. If you get 0, you have just verified the gravitational anomaly condition and explained why the atom in your hand is neutral. A word of acknowledgement. This work was inspired in part by the non-dual teachings of Sri Narayana Guru, that the creator, the creation, and the substance of creation are fundamentally one. Symbols from the Hindu tradition, the Sudarshan chakra and the Shiva linga, suggested the analogies behind the chakra model. They are acknowledged as philosophical and symbolic inspiration. The physics stands on its own. Thank you for watching. If this made you think, please like the video and subscribe. It genuinely helps this work reach the people who will argue with it properly. And do leave a comment, tell me where you think I am wrong. Every chapter in this series names its own kill tests, and the objections are the point. The book and the next chapter are linked below. Until then, one substance, and how far it reaches.